Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. I recently ran across an article titled Grant Cardone, 2 Better Ways to Save for Retirement Than IRAs and 401ks. And there is nothing that's going to get me to click on an article quicker than putting the word retirement in the title. Well, I guess maybe combining that with 401k and IRA gets me to click just a little bit quicker. And I'm betting there's a lot of you guys who feel the exact same way. Don't worry, we are the cool kids. This article starts off by saying, conventional financial advice recommends saving for retirement in a 401k, IRA, or both, but Grant Cardone doesn't advise utilizing these accounts if you want to retire rich. Sometimes it's just fun to say things, whether they're true or not. If this were a date and you sat down and your date said this to you, there's immediately a lot of red flags going off. You'd probably want to leave that date. There's plenty of other fish in the sea, and I bet the silver dollar fish would never make this kind of statement. He goes on to say, this is what we're told. When you retire, you'll have a bunch of money. When you retire, you do not need a bunch of money. No one needs a lump sum. What you need is cash flow that's dependable. You need monthly consistent cash flow. Instead of putting your money into investments, Cardone is a fan of purchasing real estate, saying that by purchasing real estate, you can then rent it out, and then that rental income can serve as regular cash flow that you can utilize to cover whatever expenses you may have. He does add that you shouldn't just buy an investment property at random. You have to be careful when making your investment property purchases. Number 1, I would invest in an income-producing property that would pay me 6% a year, where I know I can't lose my money, so I've got to be in a good, strong market where I can't lose my capital. Number 2, I need a property to be big enough that I don't manage it. I don't want to be a manager. I don't want to collect rent. And that all sounds really great. You choose this rock-solid investment with a guaranteed 6% plus return where you can't lose money. And to top it off, you choose a property so big that you can just hire a manager, you have this hands-off approach, and you just wait for the checks to roll in. The main problem with this description is that it's not reality, at least not at first. It presents this idea that investing in real estate is completely risk-free and completely passive, and that's just not true. And I get really irritated with this false narrative that is presented on social media about investing in real estate, pushing this perception that it's ridiculously easy, and it's just not. Don't get me wrong, I think investing in real estate is absolutely wonderful, just like I think investing in the stock market is absolutely wonderful. And at the end of the day, I actually think both of these approaches are the same coin, just different sides. Stick with me for a second. Because when you become a retiree, as Cardone rightly points out, it doesn't really matter if you have this lump sum of cash at the ready. What matters is that you can sustain your lifestyle, that you can sustain yourself. And that really does come down to having an income to provide for your life. If you talk to people who have a preference for investing in the stock market, people like myself, naturally we have more of a focus on building up a larger portfolio because it's from these investments that ideally we want to generate our cash flows. On the opposite side of the spectrum, you have real estate investors, also a wonderful approach, who rather focus on building up assets and more strongly focus on the cash flows that they can receive from these rental properties. So ultimately, the end goal is the same, to provide yourself with an income. It's just that the route you take to get there is different. When we talk about investing, we often talk about safe withdrawal rates, and the one that gets the most attention is the 4% rule, suggesting that you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio's total value, making an adjustment each year for inflation. And this is actually one of Cardone's arguments against investing in the market, saying once you pull the money out of the market, it's no longer growing. So you're diminishing the value of it. And all this assumes that there's no inflation and the cost of living doesn't go up. But the good news is, if you use a safe withdrawal rate, you are able to make an annual adjustment for inflation. Safe withdrawal rates are designed to factor in inflation. Long term, the market has an annual rate of return of about 8 to 10%. And if you withdraw something like 3 or 4 or 5%, this portfolio actually does continue to grow over time. It's something like 96% of retirees who use the rule of 4% actually end their life with more money than they started their retirement with. But it is fair to say that once you take this money out of the market, it's no longer working for you. And that's why you want to use a safe rate of withdrawal. But what's considered safe has a lot of variability. It could be a number as low as, say, 3%, or some people are going to hate that I say this, but it could be a number that exceeds 5%. It really depends on so many factors. There's so much variability. It could depend on things like, what kind of market are you retiring into? Is it an up market or is it a down market? Do you have multiple cash buckets to draw from? How long do you need your portfolio to last? There's a lot of variability. The truth of the matter is, investing in real estate comes with incredibly high barriers to entry, namely in the form of a down payment and closing costs. If you want to buy a single-family home, in many parts of the country nowadays, that can easily be $300,000 or even $400,000. A 20% down payment on a $300,000 home is $60,000, and that doesn't even include closing costs, and closing costs are going to be anywhere from 2 to 6% of the property's total value. It takes a lot of money to get started in real estate, and I don't know how many people actually have an extra $60,000 just lying around. That's why I'm a huge advocate for investing in the 401k or the IRA or any tax-advantaged vehicle that is available to you. The way so many of these accounts are set up, you can get invested with practically nothing. You could get started with something as simple as $10 or $20 in a low-cost index fund in your own IRA. And yes, while it's true that some funds do still have higher starting requirements, if you're getting started through an employer-sponsored 401k account, those initial requirements are actually waived. So it's a lot easier to turn to someone and say, do you want to get started investing for your future? You do? Great. Do you have $20? You do? Great. Let's get started right now. Here's how you do it. Go to one of those low-cost brokerage houses, select open an account, select the fund you want, link your bank account, and boom, you're good to go. That whole process might take 10 minutes, but getting started in real estate, that's an entirely different story. Then consider his advice that you want to buy a property that's large enough that you don't have to be the one to manage it. That brings to mind something like an apartment complex or a multi-unit building, which outside of a duplex is going to be far more expensive than a single family home, meaning it's going to require even more money to get started. Yes, indeed, there can be far more profits here, but it's going to require more money to get started. So much of this talk about investing in real estate centers around the idea that it's completely passive and that you're guaranteed not to lose any money, and neither of these statements are true. It's not passive from the stance that all properties require regular maintenance, and when you rent out a property, inevitably there are going to be things that get broken or need to be repaired. And yes, you can hire a property manager to take care of these things, and that does take the burden off your shoulders for you to take care of these items, but these properties do need to be tended to, and it can be debatable as to whether hiring a property manager is actually profitable if you only have 1 or 2 rentals. And we never have a guarantee that real estate will appreciate. Yes, long term, it's very likely that real estate will appreciate because in general, it has done that in the past. And because real estate is a leveraged asset, meaning you put a small percentage down on the overall asset, you can actually increase your returns by, say, more than investing in the stock market. But remember, long term, the stock market too has proven to go up. But I think it's just false to say you just have to find this property where you know you can't lose money. I think that's a false statement because anytime you do an investment, there's always some level of risk. The other argument that Cardone makes against retirement accounts and in favor of real estate comes down to taxes. If you have money in an IRA or a 401k, what you have is a piece of paper, he says. The only way to access that piece of paper is to sell it. The moment you sell it, you then have to pay taxes. He goes on to make the argument that investing in real estate is better from a tax perspective because of all the great write-offs, whether that's mortgage interest, property taxes, operating expenses, depreciation, and repairs. And this is sort of a half-truth. Yes, real estate does come with a lot of great write-offs, which can absolutely help to lower your overall tax burden. But if we consider investment accounts like the IRA or the 401k, if your tax burden in retirement is something you're concerned about, you can simply use the Roth version of these accounts. If you utilize the Roth version, you pay taxes today, then that money gets to grow tax-free, and then once you reach retirement, it ultimately gets to come out completely tax-free. On the other hand, if you use a traditional variety of these accounts, you put pre-tax dollars into the account, it gets to grow tax-deferred, and then once you make your withdrawals in retirement, you then pay taxes on those withdrawals. Now, which account type is better really depends on your circumstances. If you're in a lower tax bracket today and you think you'll be in a higher tax bracket in the future, it's probably better to go with the Roth variety. However, say you're in a higher tax bracket today, maybe you're an incredibly high income earner and you think you'll be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, well, then it very well could be that the traditional is a better choice. And honestly, if you're in the same tax bracket now and end up in the same tax bracket when you retire, well, the taxes you pay would then be the same. I'm a huge advocate for investing in the stock market, so I'm always going to be trying to tell people to invest in the stock market. And truly, I think one of the only ways to really build up passive income over time is through investing in the stock market. It takes a long time to do it, make no mistake about it, but if you stick with it, it really does work. And I don't want to come across as anti-real estate investment. I will totally concede the point that I actually think there's a bigger upside when you invest in real estate, but it takes a lot of money to get started, and I think that's an obstacle for the vast majority of people. I think for the vast majority of people, the safest and most reliable way to build wealth over the long term is simply through boring accounts like the 401k and the IRA. Be really careful what social media pushes at you. It can be really easy to get in over your head if you just jump all in on real estate without knowing what you're doing. It's very hard to get in over your head if you simply opt to take 10% of your paycheck or 15% of your paycheck and direct that to a 401k or an IRA. Sometimes boring really is better. Do you guys invest in a 401k or an IRA, or do you invest in real estate? Leave your thoughts in a comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, or if you know someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye.